There was a little girl who sat in the back corner of a second-grade classroom. Her name was Lily, and if you walked past her desk, you might not even notice she was there. She had a way of making herself small, tucking her hands under the desk, keeping her eyes down, moving through the school day like a shadow that nobody quite saw. But here's the thing about Lily. At home, she was completely different. When she walked through her front door after school, it was like watching someone take off a heavy coat. She'd drop her backpack, run to her grandmother who lived with them, and the words would just pour out. She'd tell Grandma about everything she saw that day, how the classroom hamster kept running on his wheel, how the art teacher wore funny glasses, how the cafeteria served pizza that looked like cardboard. Her grandmother would laugh and ask questions, and Lily would answer in both English and Mandarin, sometimes mixing them together in the same sentence. She'd sing songs from her favorite shows. She'd make up voices for her stuffed animals and have whole conversations between them. Her little brother would chase her around the living room, and she'd shriek and giggle and negotiate trades for toys. She was loud. She was funny. She was completely, perfectly normal. But something happened between home and school, something invisible and heavy that Lily couldn't explain, even to herself. The moment she saw the school building in the morning, her throat would start to feel tight. By the time she walked through the classroom door, it was like someone had pressed a mute button inside her chest. The words were still there. She could feel them, bouncing around in her head, wanting to come out, but they just wouldn't. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, was kind about it. She'd tried everything. She'd crouch down next to Lily's desk and ask gentle questions. She'd wait, giving Lily time to answer. Sometimes Lily's mouth would open, and Mrs. Patterson's face would light up with hope. But then nothing would come out except a tiny breath of air, and Lily would close her mouth again, her cheeks burning with shame. The school counselor had met with Lily's parents 3 times already. They used a phrase that Lily had overheard once: selective mutism. It sounded like a disease, something you'd catch like a cold. But Lily knew it wasn't that simple. It wasn't that she was choosing to be quiet. It was more like her voice belonged to 2 different people, and only one of them was allowed to come to school. Her parents were worried. Her mother would hold her hand in the morning and say, "Just try today, sweetheart. Just say one word. Just raise your hand once." And Lily would nod, would promise herself that today would be different. But then she'd get to school and the weight would settle over her again, and the promise would break into 1,000 pieces. The other kids had stopped trying to talk to her around October. In September, when school first started, they'd tried. A girl named Rebecca had invited her to play hopscotch. A boy named Kevin had asked if she wanted to trade snacks at lunch. But Lily could only stare at them, her mouth refusing to work, and eventually they'd shrug and walk away. After a while, they stopped asking altogether. Lily wasn't mean. She wasn't rude. If someone dropped their pencil, she'd pick it up for them. If the teacher asked everyone to get into pairs, she'd stand next to whoever was left over and be a good partner, doing her share of the work. She'd smile sometimes, a small, careful smile that didn't ask for anything in return. But smiles aren't enough to make friends. Friends need words. Friends need conversations and secrets and jokes, and Lily had none of those to give. So she became invisible. The other kids would talk around her, like she was a desk or a bookshelf, just part of the furniture. During group work, they'd divide up the tasks without asking her opinion, and she'd just nod and do whatever they assigned her. At recess, she'd sit on the bench near the playground and watch the other children play. She liked watching. She could observe the games, the arguments, the laughter, the drama. Sometimes she'd pretend she was a scientist studying a different species. It made the loneliness feel more like a choice. The worst part wasn't that the other kids ignored her. The worst part was that she knew they thought she was weird. She'd hear them sometimes, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. "Why doesn't she ever talk? Is something wrong with her? My mom said she probably can't talk." And Lily wanted to scream at them, "I can talk. I talk all the time at home. I'm not broken." But of course she couldn't scream. She couldn't even whisper. Her parents had taken her to a doctor who asked a lot of questions. Well, he asked Lily's parents questions because Lily wouldn't talk to him either. The doctor was nice enough. He had a kind face and he spoke softly, but Lily's voice stayed locked away the whole appointment. He gave her parents some papers about therapy and strategies, and Lily heard words like anxiety and gradual exposure that didn't mean much to her. At night, alone in her room, Lily would practice. She'd stand in front of her mirror and pretend she was at school. "My name is Lily," she'd say to her reflection. "I'm 7 years old. My favorite color is purple." The words came out just fine in her bedroom, clear and strong, but she knew that the next day at school they'd disappear again, like they'd never existed at all. Her grandmother understood better than anyone else. Grandma had come from China when she was young, and she told Lily stories about how hard it was to speak English at first, how scared she'd been to say the wrong thing. "Your voice is like a little bird," Grandma would say in Mandarin. "Right now it's afraid to leave the nest, but one day it will be ready to fly." Lily wanted to believe her, but as the school year went on, and September turned into October, then November, then December, it felt like that bird was never going to leave. Now it was May, almost the end of 2nd grade. Lily had spent an entire school year as the quiet girl, the girl who never spoke. And everyone had gotten used to it. Even Mrs. Patterson had stopped trying so hard, had accepted that Lily would nod or shake her head or write her answers down instead of saying them out loud. It was easier this way, Lily thought. Easier than disappointing everyone by trying and failing. But something was about to change. Something that would happen on the very last day of school. Something that nobody expected, least of all Lily herself. The ending of this school year wouldn't be just an ending. It would be the beginning of something else entirely. But Lily didn't know that yet. Right now, she was just trying to survive another day of being invisible. The announcement came on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks before the end of school. Mrs. Patterson stood at the front of the classroom with a big smile on her face, the kind of smile that teachers get when they think they're about to tell you something exciting. Lily was drawing tiny flowers in the margin of her math worksheet when she heard the words that made her stomach drop. "Class, I have wonderful news. This year, for the last day of school, we're going to have a special talent show." The other kids started buzzing immediately. Excited whispers filled the room. Someone clapped. Mrs. Patterson held up her hand for quiet and continued. "Every single student will get to participate. You can sing a song, do a dance, tell jokes, show off a sports skill, perform a magic trick, anything you'd like. It's going to be in the gymnasium, and your families are all invited to come watch." Lily's pencil stopped moving. Her hand, which had been drawing those little flowers, started to shake. She looked down at her desk and felt her heart beating so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. "We'll start preparing next week," Mrs. Patterson went on, her voice full of enthusiasm that felt like knives to Lily. "You'll each have 3 minutes on stage. 3 whole minutes to show everyone what makes you special. 3 minutes." On a stage, in front of everyone, Lily's mouth went dry. Her hands felt cold. She tried to swallow but couldn't. Around her, kids were already talking about what they wanted to do. The boy who sat in front of her was telling his friend about a soccer trick he could perform. 2 girls near the window were planning to sing a song together. Everyone seemed excited. Everyone except Lily. She couldn't do this. She couldn't stand on a stage in front of the whole school, in front of all the parents, and do anything. The thought of all those eyes on her, all those people watching and waiting, made her feel like she might throw up right there at her desk. When Mrs. Patterson looked around the room, making eye contact with each student, Lily quickly looked down. "Please don't call on me," she thought. "Please don't ask me what I want to do." But Mrs. Patterson's gaze lingered on her desk for a long moment before moving on. Lily knew that look. It was the worried look, the "what are we going to do about this child" look that adults gave her all the time. The rest of the day was torture. At lunch, she sat alone as usual. But now she had to listen to everyone around her talking about the talent show. One group of girls was arguing about which song to perform. A group of boys was debating whether basketball tricks or karate moves would be cooler. Even the quiet kids, the ones who usually kept to themselves, were discussing their plans in nervous but excited voices. Lily pushed her sandwich around on her tray. She wasn't hungry anymore. Her stomach felt twisted up in knots. She kept imagining herself on that stage, frozen, unable to move or speak, with hundreds of people staring at her. The thought made her eyes sting with tears that she refused to let fall. That afternoon, when her mother picked her up from school, Lily was quieter than usual. She got in the car and put on her seatbelt and stared out the window. "How was your day, sweetie?" her mom asked, like she always did. Lily shrugged. At home she could talk. But right now she didn't want to. If she talked about it, it would become more real. But at dinner that night, her parents got an email from Mrs. Patterson. Lily watched her mother's face as she read it on her phone. Watched her exchange a look with Lily's father, watched them both turn to look at her with those same worried expressions. "So there's a talent show," her mother said gently. Lily nodded, staring down at her rice. "That sounds fun," her dad said, trying to sound cheerful and failing. "What do you think you'd like to do?" And that's when the tears came. Lily couldn't hold them back anymore. They spilled down her cheeks as she shook her head back and forth. "I can't," she whispered. At home, the words finally came. "I can't do it, Mama. I can't stand up there. Everyone will look at me. What if I try to talk and nothing comes out? What if I just stand there and everyone laughs?" Her mother came around the table and wrapped Lily in a hug. "Oh, baby. It's okay. We'll figure something out." But Lily knew there was nothing to figure out. She couldn't do a talent show. She couldn't perform in front of people. She couldn't be on a stage. It was impossible. She might as well be asked to fly to the moon. That night, Lily lay in bed and cried into her pillow. Her grandmother came in and sat on the edge of her bed, stroking her hair. "Tell Grandma what's wrong," she said in Mandarin. Lily told her everything. About the talent show, about the stage, about how scared she was. "Everyone else can do it," she sobbed. "Everyone else is excited. Why can't I be like them? Why am I like this?" Her grandmother was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You're not broken, little bird. You're just different. Your voice works in its own way, on its own time. But I don't have time," Lily said. "It's in 3 weeks, and I still can't talk at school. I can't even raise my hand. How am I supposed to be in a talent show?" Grandma didn't have an answer for that. She just held Lily until she fell asleep, exhausted from crying. The next few days at school were awful. Mrs. Patterson started having kids sign up for time slots, and she kept a clipboard on her desk where everyone could write their name and what they were planning to do. Lily watched other kids eagerly write things down. Hannah, dance routine. Tyler, magic tricks. Sophia and Grace, singing duet. The clipboard stayed on Mrs. Patterson's desk, and every time Lily looked at it, her stomach hurt. Mrs. Patterson hadn't forced her to sign up yet, but Lily knew it was coming. The teacher kept giving her those concerned glances, like she was trying to figure out what to do. During recess, while Lily sat on her usual bench, she watched the other kids practice their acts. 3 girls were rehearsing a dance on the basketball court. A boy was showing his friends a card trick. Even Timothy, who was almost as quiet as Lily, was standing near the fence practicing a song on his recorder. He wasn't very good, hitting wrong notes that made other kids laugh, but he kept trying. He wasn't afraid to mess up in front of people. Lily felt a terrible ache in her chest. Why couldn't she be brave like that? Why did the thought of being on stage make her feel like she was going to die? One morning, she woke up with a stomachache. It hurt so bad that her mother took her temperature, felt her forehead, asked if she needed to throw up. Lily said yes, maybe, and her mother let her stay home. They both knew the stomachache wasn't really from being sick, but her mother didn't say that. She just let Lily stay on the couch watching cartoons, safe from school and stages and talent shows. But she couldn't stay home forever. The next day, she had to go back. And when she walked into the classroom, Mrs. Patterson pulled her aside during morning work time. "Lily," she said softly, kneeling down so they were at the same height. "I know the talent show feels scary. I want you to know that you don't have to do anything big. You could just come up on stage and take a bow. Or you could draw a picture while you're up there. Or your mom or dad could stand with you. We'll make it work, okay?" Lily nodded, but inside she was screaming. Drawing a picture on stage wasn't better. Having her parents there wasn't better. She'd still be the weird girl, the one who couldn't do what everyone else could do. She'd still be different, and everyone would know it. And she'd have to stand there while they all felt sorry for her. That afternoon, her parents had another meeting with Mrs. Patterson and the school counselor. Lily sat outside the office, hearing their muffled voices through the door. She couldn't make out the words, but she knew they were talking about her, deciding what to do with the girl who couldn't speak. When they came out, her mother's eyes were red, like maybe she'd been crying too. They drove home in silence, and Lily knew that they were all running out of options. The talent show was coming whether she was ready or not. And she wasn't ready. She would never be ready. That night, Lily made a decision. She would do the talent show because she had to, but she would do the smallest, quietest thing possible. She would walk on stage, stand there for 3 minutes, and walk off. She wouldn't try to perform. She wouldn't try to talk. She would just endure it, survive it, and then it would be over. Summer would come, and maybe by third grade everyone would forget about the talent show and the quiet girl who couldn't do anything. It wasn't a good plan, but it was the only plan she had, and it would have to be enough. The new boy arrived on a Wednesday morning 2 weeks before the talent show. Lily was working on a writing assignment when Mrs. Patterson walked in with him. He had messy brown hair and was wearing a backpack covered in space shuttle stickers. He stood at the front of the classroom looking uncomfortable while Mrs. Patterson introduced him. "Class, this is Benjamin. His family just moved here from across the state and he'll be joining us for the rest of the year. Let's all make him feel welcome." A few kids said hi. Benjamin gave a small wave but didn't smile. Mrs. Patterson looked around the classroom for an empty seat, and her eyes landed on the desk next to Lily. It had been empty all year because it was in the back corner, away from everything, and most kids didn't want to sit there, next to the girl who never talked. "Benjamin, you can take that seat next to Lily," Mrs. Patterson said, pointing. Lily's stomach tightened. Great. Now she'd have someone right next to her, probably asking her questions she couldn't answer, probably thinking she was weird like everyone else did. But Benjamin just walked to the desk and sat down. He didn't look at her, didn't try to introduce himself, just took out his notebook and started organizing his supplies. Lily watched him from the corner of her eye. Most new kids tried really hard to make friends right away, talking to everyone, eager to fit in. Benjamin didn't seem interested in any of that. At lunch, Benjamin sat by himself at the end of a table. Lily watched him from her usual spot. He pulled out a sandwich and a book and started reading while he ate. A couple of boys from the class went over and tried to talk to him, asking if he wanted to play basketball after lunch. Benjamin shook his head without looking up from his book. The boys shrugged and walked away. Over the next few days, Lily noticed that Benjamin was a lot like her. Not exactly the same. He could talk when teachers called on him, and he'd answer questions in his quiet voice. But he didn't try to make friends. He didn't join in the conversations before class started. At recess, while everyone else played, he'd find a spot under a tree and draw in a sketchbook he always carried. Lily was curious about those drawings, but she'd never ask to see them. That would require talking. On Friday afternoon, during independent reading time, Lily noticed Benjamin wasn't reading. He was drawing in his sketchbook again. His pencil moved quickly across the page, creating something she couldn't quite see from her angle. She tried not to stare, but she was fascinated by how focused he was, how the rest of the classroom seemed to disappear for him. Then something unexpected happened. Benjamin tore a page out of his sketchbook, folded it in half, and slid it across to Lily's desk. She looked at him, surprised, but he was already back to drawing in his book, not making eye contact. Lily unfolded the paper. It was a drawing of a spaceship, detailed and intricate, with flames coming out the back and stars all around it. At the bottom, in small letters, he'd written, "Spaceships are cool." Lily stared at the drawing. Nobody had given her anything at school in months. She wasn't sure what to do. Should she give it back? Should she say thank you? But she couldn't say thank you. The words were locked away like always. She picked up her pencil, and at the bottom of his drawing, she wrote, "Very cool." Then she slid the paper back to his desk. Benjamin looked at it, and for the first time Lily saw him smile. Just a small smile, but it was there. He took the paper, folded it carefully, and put it in his pocket. The next Monday during math class, another drawing appeared on Lily's desk. This time it was a robot with extending arms. At the bottom, "Robots are also cool," Lily smiled. She took her pencil and wrote underneath, "Agree." She added a small doodle of a star next to his robot. When she passed it back, Benjamin looked at her star and nodded approvingly. This became their thing. Benjamin would draw pictures and Lily would add little doodles or write short comments. They never spoke to each other. They didn't need to. The drawing said enough. Then one day at recess, while Lily was sitting on her bench, Benjamin appeared. He didn't ask if he could sit. He just sat down next to her, opened his sketchbook, and started drawing. Lily watched him create a picture of the playground, but with aliens on the swings and robots on the slide. It made her want to laugh, but she held it in. After a few minutes of silence, Benjamin spoke. "I know you don't talk at school," he said, not looking up from his drawing. "That's okay. I don't like talking much either." Lily's heart beat faster. Most kids either asked her why she didn't talk or they ignored the fact completely. Benjamin just acknowledged it like it was no big deal. Want to know a secret? He continued, shading in one of the aliens. At my old school, I didn't talk either. Like at all. For the whole first year. Lily turned to look at him. He kept drawing. I was really scared, he said. Everything was new and I didn't know anyone. And whenever a teacher called on me, my throat would just close up. Kids thought I was weird. They called me the mute boy. It was pretty bad. Lily felt something shift in her chest. Someone understood. Someone actually understood. My mom took me to a therapist, Benjamin went on. The therapist taught me this trick. She said when you have to talk in front of people, pretend you're only talking to one person. Pick someone you love, like your mom or your grandma or whoever, and pretend the words are just for them. Make everyone else disappear. He finally looked up at Lily. It helped me. Maybe it could help you. Lily didn't know what to say. Well, she never knew what to say at school, but this was different. She wanted to tell him thank you. She wanted to tell him that nobody had ever understood before. She wanted to tell him about her grandmother and how she could talk at home but not here. Instead, she reached into his sketchbook and turned to a blank page. She took his pencil and drew a little bird sitting in a nest. Then she drew the same bird flying out of the nest. She wrote underneath, "Grandma says my voice is like a bird that's scared to fly." Benjamin looked at the drawing for a long time. Then he took the pencil and added clouds around the flying bird and stars and a big sun. He wrote, "All birds fly eventually. Just takes the right moment." Lily felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them away. She looked at Benjamin, really looked at him, and nodded. He nodded back. The next day, Benjamin started sitting with Lily at lunch. They didn't talk much. He'd draw and she'd do her homework or doodle on her napkin. Sometimes he'd show her his drawings. Sometimes she'd slide her doodles over to him. It was comfortable. Easy. The first friendship Lily had ever had at school. One afternoon, Benjamin asked her, "Are you doing the talent show?" Lily's stomach immediately knotted up. She shook her head. "Yeah, I wasn't going to either," he said. "But my mom's making me. I'm just going to show some of my drawings on the projector. Super quick. Get it over with." He paused, then added, "You could do something without talking, you know. Like draw something on stage, or show a photo collection, or play an instrument." Lily shook her head harder. Even without talking, being on stage was impossible. But that night she couldn't stop thinking about what Benjamin had said. About pretending to talk to just one person. About making everyone else disappear. Could it really work? She went to her grandmother's room after dinner. Her grandmother was folding laundry, and when Lily came in, she smiled and patted the bed next to her. "Grandma," Lily said quietly in Mandarin, "will you teach me that lullaby again? The one you always sing?" Her grandmother's eyebrows rose. "The old one from when you were a baby?" "Of course, but why?" Lily took a deep breath. "I think I want to sing it. At the talent show." Her grandmother stopped folding. She put down the shirt in her hands and turned to face Lily fully. "Are you sure, little bird?" Lily wasn't sure. Not even a little bit. But she kept thinking about Benjamin's words. About the bird that would eventually fly. About talking to just one person. "If I sing it to you," Lily said, "just to you, nobody else, would that work? Even if there are other people there?" Her grandmother's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my sweet girl, yes, you can always sing to me. I will be right there watching you. You look at me and nobody else will matter." That night they practiced. Just the two of them in Grandma's room with the door closed. The lullaby was in Mandarin, gentle and simple. Lily had heard it 1,000 times. She knew every word. But singing it felt different than just hearing it. It felt vulnerable, personal. Her voice cracked on the first try. She stopped and started over. Grandma waited patiently, humming along. By the third time through, Lily's voice was stronger. By the 10th time, she could sing the whole thing without stopping. "Beautiful," Grandma whispered. "Your voice is beautiful." The next day at school, during lunch, Lily did something she'd never done before. She tapped Benjamin on the arm to get his attention. When he looked up, she pointed to the talent show clipboard on Mrs. Patterson's desk, visible through the cafeteria door. Benjamin raised his eyebrows. "You're going to sign up?" Lily nodded slowly. Then she held up her fingers. 3 weeks. She needed all 3 weeks. And she needed to go last, dead last. "After everyone else, you got this," Benjamin said. And somehow, when he said it, Lily almost believed it. That afternoon, she walked up to Mrs. Patterson's desk. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. But she picked up the pen and wrote her name on the very last line. Under what will you do? She wrote, sing a song. Mrs. Patterson looked up, her mouth falling open in surprise. Lily, you're going to sing? Lily nodded once, then quickly walked back to her seat before the teacher could ask any more questions. She'd done it. She'd signed up. There was no going back now, and she had 2 weeks to either find her courage or completely fall apart. The last day of school arrived faster than Lily wanted. She woke up that morning with her stomach doing somersaults. For 2 weeks, she'd practiced the lullaby every single night with her grandmother. In her bedroom, with just the two of them, her voice came out clear and steady. But this morning, the talent show was only hours away, and Lily felt like she might be sick. Her mother made her favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries, but Lily could barely eat. She pushed the food around her plate, took tiny bites, and kept glancing at the clock. Her little brother was excited because it was the last day of school, chattering about summer and swimming pools, but Lily couldn't focus on anything he said. You don't have to do this, her mother said gently. If you want to change your mind, nobody will be upset. But Lily shook her head. She'd made her decision. She'd practiced so hard. And Benjamin believed she could do it. Grandma believed she could do it. Maybe they were wrong, but she had to at least try. When they got to school, the building felt different. All the classes were having parties, eating snacks, playing games, signing yearbooks. But Lily couldn't enjoy any of it. The talent show was scheduled for 1 o'clock in the gymnasium. Every minute that passed felt like both an eternity and a split second at the same time. Benjamin found her at lunch. They sat together at their usual table, but neither of them ate much. He was going to show his drawing somewhere in the middle of the program. Lily was going dead last. You're going to do great, he said, but his voice sounded nervous too. Remember, just look at your grandma. Nobody else exists. Just her, Lily nodded. Her throat already felt tight, and the show hadn't even started yet. At 12:30, Mrs. Patterson gathered the class to walk to the gymnasium. Lily's legs felt wobbly as she followed the line of students. The gym had been transformed. There was a real stage set up at one end with curtains and lights. Rows and rows of chairs filled the floor, already filling up with parents, grandparents, siblings, teachers. So many people, Lily's family was sitting in the third row. She could see her grandmother wearing her best dress, the blue one with flowers. Her mother was there, and her father, and even her little brother who was squirming in his seat. When Grandma caught Lily's eye, she pressed her hand to her heart and smiled. The performers sat in the first 2 rows, and Lily found a seat at the end, away from everyone else. Her hands were ice cold. Her mouth was so dry she could barely swallow. She watched the gymnasium fill up with what seemed like hundreds of people. The whole school must be here. Every student, every teacher, every family member who could come. The principal walked onto the stage and tapped the microphone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second grade talent show. We're so proud of our students for their hard work and bravery in sharing their talents with us today. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Everyone clapped. The sound was deafening. Lily pressed her cold hands together and tried to breathe. The first performer was a girl who did a gymnastics routine. She was good, doing cartwheels and handstands, and the audience clapped enthusiastically. Then came a boy who told knock-knock jokes. Some of them were funny, some weren't, but people laughed anyway. Then 2 girls sang a pop song together, slightly off-key but with lots of energy. Then a magic show. Then a dance routine. Then someone playing the violin. Lily watched it all in a haze. Her heart was beating so fast. Her hands were shaking. Each performance brought her closer to her turn. She tried to remember everything she'd practiced. Tried to remember Benjamin's advice about picking one person. Tried to remember how her voice sounded strong and clear in her bedroom. Benjamin's turn came. He walked onto the stage looking uncomfortable, and he put his sketchbook under a document camera so his drawings showed on the big screen. He flipped through pages of spaceships and robots and aliens, not saying much, just showing them quickly. But the audience loved them. People gasped at the details, clapped at the creativity. When he was done, he practically ran off the stage, but he looked relieved. He caught Lily's eye from his seat and gave her a small thumbs up. More performances. A karate demonstration, someone playing the recorder, a kid who could juggle. The program went on, and Lily felt like she was watching from underwater. Everything seemed distant and muffled. She was so scared she couldn't feel her fingers. Finally, after what felt like hours, the principal announced the last performer. And now for our final act of the day, Lily will sing a song for us. This was it. No more waiting. Lily stood up on legs that barely worked. She walked toward the stage, and every step felt impossible. The audience was quiet now, watching. Everyone knew who Lily was, the girl who never spoke. What was she doing walking onto a stage? She climbed the steps. The stage was bigger than she'd imagined. The lights were brighter. She could see everyone's faces looking up at her. So many faces, too many. Her vision started to blur around the edges. She walked to the center of the stage and stopped. The microphone was there on a stand, waiting. She was supposed to adjust it, bring it down to her height, but her hands were shaking too much. Mrs. Patterson appeared from the side and helped her, lowering the microphone, giving her an encouraging smile before stepping back. The gymnasium was completely silent. Even the kindergartners had stopped fidgeting. Everyone was staring at Lily, waiting. The silence stretched out, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Someone coughed. Lily's mind went blank. She couldn't do this. She couldn't. All these people. All these eyes. Her throat felt like it was closing up, just like always. The bird in her chest was terrified, refusing to fly. She stood there frozen, unable to move, unable to speak. Exactly like she'd feared she was going to fail, in front of everyone. Then, through her panic, she found her grandmother's face in the third row. Grandma was leaning forward, both hands pressed to her heart, tears already streaming down her face. Their eyes met, and Grandma nodded. Just nodded. Like she was saying, "I'm here. I see you. You're safe." Benjamin's words came back to her. Pick one person. Make everyone else disappear. Lily closed her eyes. She took a breath. When she opened her eyes, she looked only at her grandmother. Not at the principal sitting to the side. Not at Mrs. Patterson watching nervously. Not at the hundreds of other people in the audience. Just Grandma. She imagined she was in her bedroom. Just the two of them. The walls closed in. The gymnasium disappeared. The crowds vanished. It was just Lily and Grandma. Like every night for the past 2 weeks, she opened her mouth. Her voice came out thin and shaky, barely a whisper into the microphone. The first line of the lullaby in Mandarin, the words her grandmother had sung to her since she was a baby. The sound was so quiet that people in the back probably couldn't hear. But she'd made a sound, an actual sound. Her voice existed. She took another breath and sang the second line. Stronger this time, still shaky, still scared, but there. The melody that Grandma had taught her, that Grandma's mother had taught her, passed down through generations. Lily kept her eyes locked on her grandmother. Nowhere else. She sang the third line, and her voice was steadier now. The words flowed in Mandarin, gentle and sweet. The lullaby about the moon and stars, about a child sleeping safely, about being loved and protected. She could feel her hands still shaking, could feel her knees trembling. But her voice kept going. Line after line, the terrified bird in her chest had finally opened its wings. It was flying, wobbly and uncertain, but flying. The gymnasium stayed completely quiet. Not a single person made a sound. Even the little kids were still mesmerized by this unexpected moment. The girl who never spoke was singing. Lily sang about dreams and night and tomorrow. The words came from somewhere deep inside her, from the place that only existed at home, but she'd brought it here, to school, to the stage. She'd unlocked it. The last line came. Her voice was clear now, no longer shaking. She sang it looking right at her grandmother, and she saw Grandma's face wet with tears, saw her smiling the biggest smile Lily had ever seen. The final note hung in the air. Then silence. Lily stood there, not sure what to do next. Had she done it? Was it over? Then the applause started. Not polite applause. Not the kind of clapping you do because you're supposed to. This was thunderous. People stood up. The whole gymnasium rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Some parents were crying. Mrs. Patterson was wiping her eyes. The principal was applauding so hard her hands must hurt. Lily looked out at the standing ovation, overwhelmed. She found Benjamin in the crowd. He was standing too, clapping, grinning so wide his face might split. She looked back at her grandmother, who was standing with her hands pressed to her chest, tears streaming, mouthing the words, "I'm so proud of you." Her mother was crying. Her father was clapping with tears in his eyes. Even her little brother was jumping up and down, excited even though he didn't fully understand what was happening. Lily had done it. She'd sung in front of everyone. Her voice had worked. The bird had flown. She walked off the stage on shaky legs. Mrs. Patterson hugged her tight. Other teachers were congratulating her. Her classmates were looking at her differently now with awe and surprise. The talent show ended. The principal said some closing words that Lily barely heard. Then everyone was dismissed and Lily's family rushed to her. Grandma got there first, wrapping Lily in the tightest hug, saying things in Mandarin that Lily couldn't quite make out through the emotion. Her parents hugged her. Her brother high-fived her. Other parents she didn't even know were stopping to tell her how beautiful her song was, how brave she was. Benjamin found her in the crowd. He didn't say anything, just held out his fist for a fist bump. Lily bumped it back and they both smiled. She'd done the impossible thing. She'd used her voice at school, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, something better had happened. Something had begun. The summer after the talent show was different. Lily spent it like any other kid, swimming and riding her bike. But something inside her had shifted. She wasn't fixed, wasn't suddenly chatty and outgoing. The world didn't work that way. But she'd proven something to herself on that stage. Her voice existed. It was real. It could work when she needed it to. Still, when September came and third grade started, Lily felt the familiar tightness in her chest walking through the school doors. On the first day, when her new teacher asked students to introduce themselves, Lily's throat closed up just like always. She managed to whisper her name, barely audible, but that was all. Some things don't change overnight. The difference was that now people knew she could speak. Her classmates had told everyone about the talent show, about the quiet girl who'd sung in another language. And while Lily still didn't raise her hand much, still ate lunch quietly, she wasn't invisible anymore. She was known. Benjamin was still in her class, which made everything easier. By October, something started happening. Lily found that she could whisper answers to the teacher when he came to her desk. Not in front of the class, but one-on-one, she could push words out. They were quiet words, shaky words, but they were there. In November, during a small reading group, Lily managed to read aloud. Just one paragraph. Her voice was so soft that the other students had to lean in, but she read the whole thing. When she finished, one of the girls said, "You have a nice reading voice." Lily's cheeks burned, but inside she felt warm. The change was slow. So slow that some days it felt like no progress at all. There were still mornings when Lily couldn't speak at school no matter how hard she tried. Still days when the old fear came back and locked her voice away. But there were also good days. Days when she could talk to Benjamin out loud at lunch. Days when she could participate in group work without only nodding. Her grandmother told her to be patient with herself. "The bird is learning to fly," she'd say. Some days it soars. Some days it needs to rest in the nest. Both are okay. Years passed. 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. Lily got a little braver each year. She joined the art club in 5th grade because she didn't have to talk much. She made a few more friends. Quiet kids like her who didn't mind long silences. She learned that there were other kids dealing with anxiety, with fears, with things that made them different. She wasn't alone. Middle school was hard again. New building, new people, new challenges. Lily's voice retreated some, scared by the change. But she'd learned coping strategies by then. She knew how to breathe through the panic, knew how to find one person to focus on, knew that having a quiet voice didn't mean having no voice at all. Whenever something felt impossible, speaking up in class, giving a presentation, meeting new people, she'd remember standing on that stage, remember looking at her grandmother, remember the sound of her own voice singing that lullaby. If she could do that, she could do other hard things too. High school brought new growth. Lily took a public speaking class which terrified her, but she forced herself to do it. She gave presentations that made her shake and sweat, but she gave them. She wasn't the loudest voice in the room, never would be, but she was there, present, heard. She also started helping in the elementary school's reading program, working with young kids who struggled. One day she worked with a kindergarten boy who wouldn't speak at school. Lily recognized him immediately, saw herself in his anxious eyes. She told him her story, about being the quiet girl, about the talent show. She drew pictures with him, just like Benjamin had done for her. 3 months later, that little boy whispered his first word at school. Just one word, "hi," directed at Lily. She nearly cried. She knew exactly how much courage that single word had taken. That's when Lily knew what she wanted to do with her life. She went to college and studied speech therapy. After graduation, Lily opened a small practice helping children with selective mutism and other communication challenges. Her office was warm and welcoming, filled with art supplies. On her desk, she kept a framed drawing that Benjamin had given her years ago, the bird flying out of its nest, surrounded by clouds and stars. She kept a notebook similar to the one Benjamin had used with her. When she met new clients, children who couldn't speak, she'd write messages to them. "Your voice is waiting for you," she'd write on the first page. "It's more beautiful than you know, and I'm going to help you find it." Her approach was gentle. She never pushed, never forced. She created safe spaces where silence was okay, where communication happened through drawing and writing, and eventually, when they were ready, through words. She taught them that bravery looks different for everyone. For some kids, bravery is climbing a mountain. For others, bravery is whispering a single word when silence has been your home for years. Years later, Lily got a message from her old school. They wanted her to speak at an assembly about overcoming challenges. Lily's first instinct was to say no. Public speaking still wasn't easy, but she thought about that second-grade version of herself, sitting in the back corner believing she was broken. She said yes. The day of the assembly, Lily stood backstage in the same gymnasium where she'd sung that lullaby 20 years earlier. When they called her name, she walked onto the stage. There were hundreds of students in the audience. For a moment, just a moment, Lily felt that old fear. But then she found a little girl in the third row who looked nervous and scared and exactly like Lily at that age. "Hi, everyone," Lily said into the microphone. Her voice was clear and strong. "My name is Lily, and when I was in second grade at this school, I was the girl who never spoke." She told them her story. All of it. The silence, the fear, the talent show, the slow journey of finding her voice. The gymnasium was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "If you're struggling with something, if you feel different or broken, you're not alone," Lily said. "Your challenges don't define you. How you face them does. And facing them doesn't mean conquering them perfectly. It means trying even when you're scared. Your voice matters. Whether it's loud or quiet, whether it speaks with words or art or actions, it matters." The applause was thunderous. After the assembly, a little girl approached her. She handed Lily a folded piece of paper and ran away. Lily unfolded it. It was a drawing of a bird flying among stars and clouds. At the bottom, in shaky letters, "Thank you for helping me know I'm not broken." Lily pressed the drawing to her chest and let the tears come. This was why. This was everything. The lesson Lily wanted everyone to understand was this: you don't have to be like everyone else. You don't have to find your voice on someone else's timeline. You don't have to be loud to be heard. You just have to be you, authentically and courageously, even when it's hard. Some birds learn to fly immediately. Others need more time, more practice, more encouragement. But eventually, when the moment is right, they all take flight. And the ones who struggled the most often have the most beautiful song. Lily wasn't the quiet girl anymore. She was the woman who'd learned that being different was okay, that the hardest journeys often lead to the most meaningful destinations. She was the woman who remembered what it felt like to be voiceless and now helped others find their own words. And every time she helped a child speak for the first time, she remembered standing on that stage. She remembered her grandmother's face. She remembered Benjamin's encouragement. She remembered the lullaby, the child who never spoke until the last day of school had found her voice. And now she was helping others find theirs, one whispered word at a time, one small victory at a time, one brave moment at a time, because that's how change really happens. Not in dramatic overnight transformations, but in tiny acts of courage that build on each other, day after day, until you look back and realize you've traveled further than you ever thought possible. And it all started with 3 minutes on a stage, a grandmother's love, a friend's kindness, and a little girl who decided that maybe, just maybe, her voice deserved to be heard after all.